Okay, so you want to own a luxury watch brand. You have probably seen the numbers. A watch sells for $5,000, sometimes $10,000, sometimes $50,000. The movement inside might cost a few $100s. The steel case weighs less than your smartphone. The entire product fits in the palm of your hand. You look at the markup and the conclusion seems obvious. This has to be one of the greatest businesses in the world. Sell a tiny object for thousands of dollars. Build a reputation. Open a few boutiques. Watch collectors line up to hand you money. And you're not wrong. Luxury watches are one of the highest margin products ever created. There is just one problem. The watch is not actually what people are paying for. There are roughly 1-2 billion watches produced globally every year. Most are forgotten almost immediately. Meanwhile, a handful of brands can charge more for a stainless steel watch than the average person earns in a year. And the gap between those two outcomes has almost nothing to do with manufacturing, because somewhere between the movement and the customer, there is another asset being created. A brand, and that brand is often worth far more than the watches themselves. Which creates one of the strangest businesses in the world. A business where the product costs hundreds of dollars to make, sells for thousands, and still leaves many owners struggling to earn a meaningful return. Because the people who make watches are not always the people who capture the most value. Let's talk about what actually happens. Suppose you want to launch a luxury Swiss watch brand, not a fashion watch, not a drop-shipping operation, a legitimate luxury watch company competing with names collectors already recognize. The first thing you need is a movement. If you are a new company, you are probably not manufacturing one yourself. Building an in-house caliber requires years of engineering, specialized machinery, highly trained watchmakers, and millions of dollars before a single watch reaches a customer. So you buy movements from suppliers. A reliable Swiss automatic movement might cost between $100 and $300 wholesale. That sounds incredibly cheap, especially if you plan to sell the finished watch for $5,000. But the movement was never the expensive part. The expensive part is everything that comes after. The case, the dial, the hands, the sapphire crystal, the bracelet, the assembly, the regulation, the quality control. A well-finished luxury watch can easily carry component and manufacturing costs between $500 and $1,500 before packaging, marketing, shipping, warranties, and overhead, and that is before anyone has heard of your brand. Now comes the first cost most new founders underestimate: credibility. Because a luxury watch is not competing against other watches, it is competing against trust. A customer buying a Rolex is not evaluating steel and gears, they are evaluating certainty. Certainty that the watch will hold value, certainty that other people recognize it, certainty that the company will still exist 20 years from now. A new brand has none of those advantages, which means you have to buy credibility yourself. And credibility is expensive. Luxury watch companies routinely spend between 15 and 25% of revenue on marketing and brand building, sponsorships, events, magazine placements, digital campaigns, influencers, retail displays, trade shows, celebrity partnerships, boutiques. The irony is that the better your watch becomes, the less important the watch itself often is. Because once every watch tells time accurately, attention becomes the scarce resource. And attention costs money. A lot of money. Let's say your watch retails for $5,000. Most people imagine you collect $5,000. You don't. Not necessarily. Because most luxury watch brands still rely heavily on authorized dealers. Independent retailers buy watches wholesale and sell them to customers. The retailer keeps a substantial portion of the final sale price, often 40% or more. That means your $5,000 watch might generate only $2,500 to $3,000 for your company. Out of that amount, you still need to pay manufacturing costs, marketing costs, employee salaries, warranty reserves, shipping, insurance, research and development, and whatever remains is your profit. Suddenly the economics start looking different. The markup is still large, but not nearly as large as people imagine. And then there is inventory. This is where the business becomes dangerous, because unsold watches do not simply wait patiently for customers. They actively damage the brand. Suppose you manufacture 10,000 watches expecting strong demand. Demand never arrives. Now thousands of units sit in warehouses. Dealers become nervous. Cash becomes trapped. Discounts begin appearing. Grey market sellers start offering your watches 20% below retail. Then 30% below retail. Collectors notice immediately, and something subtle begins happening. The product has not changed. The quality has not changed. The craftsmanship has not changed. But the perception changes. The watch no longer feels scarce. It no longer feels special. And once that happens, the entire value proposition begins to collapse. Because luxury pricing only works when people believe scarcity is real. This is why some of the world's most successful watch companies intentionally produce fewer watches than they could sell, not because they lack capacity, because they understand something more important. The moment customers can easily buy everything, they stop wanting it. Now here is where the story becomes genuinely interesting. While many watch brands fight for single-digit operating margins, some of the largest luxury groups have discovered a completely different game. They don't just own watch brands, they own portfolios of watch brands. Companies like the Swatch Group, Richemont, and LVMH control entire collections of luxury names. Some compete with one another, some target completely different customers, but all of them benefit from the same thing: brand ownership. Because the most valuable asset in luxury watchmaking is not the factory, it is not the machinery, it is not even the watches. It is the permission to charge a premium, and that permission exists entirely inside the customer's mind. Consider what happened during the quartz crisis. In the 1970s and early 1980s, Swiss watchmaking faced an existential threat. Japanese manufacturers introduced accurate, affordable quartz watches. Suddenly, traditional mechanical watches looked obsolete. Employment across the Swiss watch industry collapsed. Thousands of companies disappeared. Historic brands vanished. Factories closed. Entire communities built around watchmaking nearly disappeared. Many people assumed the industry was finished, but something unexpected happened. The survivors stopped competing on timekeeping. They started competing on identity. The mechanical watch transformed from a tool into a symbol, a statement, a piece of personal branding worn on the wrist. And once that transformation occurred, the economics changed completely. Because no smartphone can replace status, no digital display can replace exclusivity, and no technological advancement can eliminate the desire for prestige. That realization rebuilt an entire industry. Today, some of the strongest luxury watch brands generate waiting lists rather than inventory. Customers ask permission to buy, not the other way around. Think about how unusual that is. In most businesses, the company chases the customer. In luxury watchmaking, the customer often chases the company. That reversal is incredibly powerful and incredibly profitable. But it is also incredibly fragile, because luxury demand is tied directly to wealth. When stock markets fall, when consumer confidence weakens, when economies slow down, luxury purchases are often among the first expenses people postpone. Nobody delays buying groceries. People absolutely delay buying a $10,000 watch. Sales can fall sharply. Inventory builds, retailers order less, margins compress. The exact same brand that looked unstoppable during a boom suddenly faces a very different reality. And unlike many industries, luxury brands cannot simply slash prices. Discounting solves a short-term sales problem, but creates a long-term brand problem. Once customers learn they can wait for discounts, the illusion of exclusivity begins to disappear, and rebuilding exclusivity is far harder than protecting it. This is why successful luxury watch companies become obsessed with one thing: scarcity management. Not manufacturing, not engineering. Scarcity. Because scarcity determines pricing power. Pricing power determines margins. Margins determine survival. Now let's put some numbers together. Imagine you launch a successful luxury watch brand. You sell 10,000 watches annually. Average retail price $5,000. Retail revenue value $50 million. Sounds incredible. Except much of that revenue flows through retailers. Manufacturing consumes another portion. Marketing absorbs another large share. Operations take more. Employee costs rise. Warranty obligations remain. Suddenly, the final profit is much smaller than the headline revenue suggests. Now imagine a different scenario. Instead of selling 10,000 watches, you build enough demand to sell 6,000. But every model develops waiting lists. Secondary market prices exceed retail. Collectors compete to buy. Your production stays below demand. Your marketing becomes more efficient because customers generate publicity themselves. Your pricing power increases. Profitability improves dramatically. The second company sells fewer watches, but often creates more value. This is the paradox at the center of luxury watchmaking. The goal is not maximizing production. The goal is maximizing desire. The companies that understand that distinction are the companies that survive, the ones that don't often disappear. So, let's close the loop. You decide to launch a luxury watch brand. You invest millions in development. You source Swiss movements. You build supplier relationships. You hire designers. You create marketing campaigns. You attend trade shows. You open boutiques. You manufacture beautiful watches. The watches matter, but not nearly as much as most people think. Because the true product was never steel. It was never sapphire crystal. It was never a mechanical movement. The true product is confidence. The confidence that the watch means something. The confidence that other people recognize it. The confidence that the story attached to the brand will still matter years from now. The factories can be copied. The materials can be copied. Even the designs can be copied. But the belief inside the customer's mind is much harder to replicate. And in the luxury watch business, that belief is ultimately worth far more than the watch itself.